17 minutes.
Thank you. And I wonder, with the agreement of the House, if I could share my time with Senator Pearse Doherty.
Half and half, or
If we said 10 and 5.
10 and 5.
Yeah.
Is that agreed? Agreed.
Thank you, Kirley.
Okay.
There's no point in, as Senator Boyle has said, us planning the future on the basis that we hope that the public will gradually gain confidence in this. As a basis for proceeding, that is a flawed basis in my submission of Caherlick. Because unless there's confidence in the taxpayers and in the public committing themselves to what's being proposed now, unless that confidence is sought and achieved now, it will fundamentally undermine, it seems to me, into the future what's being proposed in our name and what looks likely to be enacted in our name. This is not the kind of project that is amenable to let's suck it and see. And let's see after a few months and after a couple of years, will people come round to it? There are some elements of public policy that perhaps that case could be made for. But this is not one of those areas of public policy. Because the taxpayers and because the Irish people are being asked now to make a commitment, an irrevocable commitment into the future, a commitment of really, and it's not an exaggeration to say, historic proportions in terms of the amounts of money involved that are being committed for this generation and at least one, if not two, future generations. So it simply is not acceptable and I can understand Senator Boyle hoping that people come round to this as the months and the years progress. I can see where he's coming from his own point of view politically, that things change and that people develop some confidence in the future, because as he rightly acknowledges, there's little or no confidence in it now. But I'm sorry, this is not one type of proposal that it's acceptable for us just to hope that people will change their minds. And I thought when Senator Boyle stood up that he was going to explain to us, and I'm listening all the time for some explanation or for some clarification from the Green Party in government about the so-called social dividend. Where is it? Where are the amendments? Where is this social dividend that was trumpeted by the leader of the Green Party as being something that they were going to put into the heart of this process? We were listening to this for days around at the time of the renegotiation or the negotiation or whatever it's called, the renewed programme for government. Speaker after speaker was saying that this was going, that the programme for government was going to be transformative, but that in particular in relation to NAMA, that the social dividend was going to be put into the heart of it. Now, I may have mistaken, I may be mistaken in what I heard Senator McSharry earlier on was referring to the social dividend, and it didn't sound to me that he was referring to the social dividend in particularly warm terms, certainly not in any sense that was informing me as to what is meant by it. Because the reality at the end of the day, Caherlick, is that there is no, certainly, and the lack of confidence of the public in relation to the NAMA project, as is being acknowledged by Senator Boyle, points to the fact that, regrettably, there is no social dividend on the table in respect of NAMA. There is a very large bill being handed to the Irish people and to the Irish taxpayer in respect of what's about to occur. And all of this fig leaf talk about social dividends is precisely that. And vague talk about changing the planning system. I agree that the planning system needs to be altered fundamentally. And I agree with some elements in the bill that's currently before this House. I think they do represent an improvement. But the NAMA bill and the NAMA legislation is not a planning measure. And there's very little in it to do with planning. And that is not the type of measure that it is or purports to be. And there's no point in people trying to mislead and add further to the undermining of people's confidence that has been referred to by trying to suggest that there's going to be some form of social dividend, so-called social dividend, emerging from this process. Just a few things in relation to what the Minister said. I thank him for his address and welcome him to the House again. And I just touching this very briefly, this business about the flow of the debate and the course of the debate in this House and in the other House. I'm sure the Minister will say that he wasn't suggesting, although something that Senator Boyle kind of concerned me as well earlier on, the order of business. There's no suggestion, I hope, from the government that the debate will in any sense in any way be curtailed in either House. And not only just that it won't be curtailed, but the government should be taking the view that the maximum amount of scrutiny and debate should occur in this House and in the other House in the next week or two. And that the Oireachtas, because if there's any hope of the government bringing the people with it, as it were, one of the ways of doing that is for the government to be prepared to not to carp and not to appear to get irritated, as they did, for example, last July when we wanted to debate other measures under a completely different heading in justice, to get irritated by what is sometimes called delay or undue delay that has been referred to by the Minister in his speech. And I would remind the Minister and the House that the original proposal in respect of NAMA, it was announced in the supplementary budget on the 7th of April of this year, which is some considerable period ago. There was then a consultative document published in July. Then the bill was published in September, and it's only now, the debate is only now, in the last week or two, happening in Dáil, in the other House, and it's proposed to come here within the next 2 weeks. And, you know, as it were, the percentage of the time that has been taken up in devising and putting in place this scheme, the percentage of the time that is proposed to give to the Parliament in the context of those months of preparation and discussion and debate is actually quite low. And in fact, it was striking just looking at the one aspect of the business plan. I just noted at one stage, going through it at Caherlick, there's a summary of the work, that liaison work and so on, that the interim NAMA people have been doing, engaging in intensive engagement with financial institutions likely to participate in NAMA. That's understandable. Discussion with interested third parties, including the foreign-owned financial institutions who operate and lend in the Irish property market. Discussions with the Irish Bankers Federation, with the Irish Bank Officials Association, with the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, with the Construction Industry Federation, the Irish Property Council, individuals and organisations who have operated in similar schemes overseas, for example in Sweden and in America, the UK Treasury, the Bank of England, the UK Financial Services Authority, and then domestically the Central Statistics Office and Eurostat, and then of course the European Commission's DG, Director General on Competition. Now, I can understand that there would be a reason for the government consulting with and discussing with all of these bodies in their own right, but they certainly cannot, it seems to me, have any basis at all for seeking to, in any sense, curtail or complain about a debate, a proper debate happening in these houses, given the length of time that they themselves have taken, perhaps understandably, in bringing this complex piece of legislation onto the floor of the other House. Now, the central argument in the Minister's speech, and the one that comes across all of the time from the advocates of the NAMA project, is an objective that nobody can disagree with. The objective. Nobody can disagree with the objective. A quote from the Minister's speech where he says that one of the key essentials for economic recovery is a healthy and functioning banking system that will serve the needs of the Irish, of the wider economy, and that we want a properly functioning banking system. And of course that is absolutely true, that we want a properly functioning banking system. But how does this initiative deliver that? It's not enough rhetorically for the Minister or for the government to say we're doing it so that we can restore the health of the banking system. I presume that's why you're doing it. I mean, why else would you be doing it? So I take that as read. But what I want then is an elucidation, an elaboration as to how you say that's going to in fact lead to the consequence that you say it will. What basis do you have for saying that the banks will start lending once you get the NAMA process through? And indeed, not just get the NAMA process through, but then, as Senator Boyle has been signalling and others,
there are 10 left.
Thank you, Caherlick. Not just finalise the NAMA process, but then also do what I think Senator Boyle said was the probability or likelihood of the requirement for further capitalisation of the banks. So that's going to happen as well. And he's quoted in the Irish Times saying that today. So having all of that having occurred, can the Minister give us any indication at all as to the basis for his believing that the banks will then turn around and will then, as it were, change their strategy, their lending strategy, and genuinely contribute to, or genuinely become a functioning banking system in the interests of the country, in the interests of the taxpayers, in the interests of small businesses, in the interests of householders, not in the interests of the shareholders? I'm not attacking the shareholders. I understand how the system works. But it's not to restore the banks so that the banks can be healthy again, so that the shareholders are profiting from the situation. Presumably what the Minister means is the effects that it would have on the wider economy. Can we have any indication or any proposals that the Minister has, the Government has, to ensure that lending will genuinely resume to the productive economy?
Senator Doherty.